He's Howard Ibach, a former copywriter and creative director and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 26 years of experience. And now he's the owner of a silver can lion, ladies and gentlemen. And together, we are the Brief Brothers, having an ongoing conversation about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. Well, Henry, you are back from Cannes, and we are back with another episode. And today we're going to have a great conversation about a couple of things. One, your experience at Cannes, and I'm pretty sure that you told me this is your first time there. And second, a really cool thing happened, which I've kind of given away. Zubi Advertising, where you are the vice president and director of strategy, and your colleagues, your proud colleagues, come home with a silver lion from Cannes for a product for Burger King. So I'm just going to use that as my entree, and I'm going to hand it over to you, and I want you to tell our viewers about your experience at Cannes and a little bit about this little product thing that you did that got an award called the Silver Lion. So
thanks.
By the way, before I pass this on, let me take this opportunity to say how proud I am of you, my partner and my friend of, I forget how long we've known each other, but it's been a long time. We're coming up on 10 years, I think.
I think more than that.
Yeah, how proud I am of you as a friend, as a colleague, as an advertising professional, to be sitting here with you, sharing these great stories, and all the last year and a half of talking about all those things that we care about. This is a great moment for you, but I'm kind of enjoying the little bit of the glow that's coming off of you from your experience. So, man, I'm really proud of you. And so, give us your background, give us your story.
Thank you, man. It means a lot coming from you. We've become very close friends over the last few years, and particularly the last, year and a half that we've been doing this. Early on, I was a big champion of your first book when it came out. So, you very humbly, before we went on the air, said, "Well, I'm flattered that you think it's important that it's coming from me, and don't be flattered. It comes from the heart. It really makes me very happy to know that you're proud of me, and so now that Love Fest is over, I can and I can reveal some of the things that went into creating a Cannes Lion winning idea. I think maybe the thing to do right now is to roll the case study video. It's very short, for the idea that won the Silver Lion. I'll also add that this is my first Lion at Cannes. It was my first trip to Cannes, and it's the agency's first. We're going to be coming up on 50 years in the fall that the agency's been around, and this is our first Lion. So let's roll that case video real quick.
Okay, let's watch. Okay, pretty powerful stuff, Henry. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the background, how it all happened? It was really a great spot.
So to tell the story, really, I have to go back a little over 4 years when I joined the agency. Um, right before I joined Zubi, in fact, the week before I was supposed to start, I took a road trip through France with my wife and my stepdaughter. And we drove from Paris to the south of France, and we made a stop in Cannes. And I picked up a postcard, and with the intention of giving it to Ivan Gaye, who's our chief creative at Zubi, as I was beginning the job there. And the intention was to give him this postcard from Cannes saying, we're going to win a lion together at Cannes. Unfortunately, somehow between France and the US, I lost the postcard, but I told him about it. But early on, we established that we both had a mutual interest, because the Cannes Festival of Creativity is the most revered of the festivals. There are other festivals that are arguably harder to win, arguably they've been around longer, but the Cannes Festival is really at the top. And so, as an agency, it was a goal. Zubi's been around, like I said, 50 years. We work primarily in the Hispanic market. We work primarily with blue chip accounts, which is great. We work with accounts like the Ford Motor Company and Chase, but they tend to be conservative accounts, and it's not the kind of names that you necessarily see at Cannes year to year. And viewers of the Brief Brothers know, have heard us talking about Burger King many times in our episodes, and about the stuff that Burger King was doing, and the off the wall stuff and the award-winning stuff. And I think it's important to pause here and talk a little bit about Burger King, because Burger King wasn't just doing stuff to win awards. Burger King's a challenger brand with a much smaller budget than what their top competitor, McDonald's, has. So what Fernando Machado as a CMO did was develop a strategy of creating ideas with what he called talkability, ideas that for a small investment, you could get a lot of buzz around the brand. And if you string together consistently a lot of these ideas over the course of a year, you're basically outperforming whatever budget you had, because you're generating disproportionate amounts of buzz for the brand. And also, because Burger King is kind of an off the wall brand, it gives them opportunities to do these kind of things. So that said, and I also come into Zubi with 14 years of fast food experience, including notably for this case study, both on Burger King that I worked on for about 2 years, and McDonald's that I worked on for 5 years. So I know the category really well. And so when I joined at Zubi, I told Ivan, I said, listen, if we come up with killer ideas for Burger King, which was the brand of the moment at the time, and is the brand of the moment at Cannes right now, because they won brand of the year at Cannes again this year. If we come up with some killer Burger King ideas, I'll get us a meeting at Burger King. And, I had to tap into a relationship that I have with somebody very highly placed at the parent company of Burger King. And so, I had a pretty good idea I could deliver on that promise if we came up with a good idea. So he took me up on that, and I wrote a brief. For Burger King. I gave them a direction that they honestly didn't follow. and this is part of telling the true story of a case like this. I think that the brief that I gave them was that the main thrust of it was to do something around single fathers, or fathers who raise their kids part-time, as in my case, where I'm divorced from my kids' mother. I'm not a single father because I have shared custody, but when I have the kids, I'm 100% responsible for them. And it's also a demographic that's growing in the United States. There's a lot of involved. We hear a lot about single moms. We don't hear that much about truly single dads, or dads that at least through shared custody are at times primarily responsible for their children. So that was kind of the brief that I gave them. And some of the ideas they brought back dealt with that, but they weren't the really challenging ideas or the great ideas that came back from the brief. But the most notable thing on the brief, I think that really helped them was that I cut up sections of an interview that Fernando Machado, the then CMO of Burger King, gave to an Indian television station, and it was filmed in Cannes, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And he sat down with them for like an hour. And I found this video on YouTube just searching for Fernando Machado. And I think at the time the video had like 6 views, like literally, it was like in the Brief Brothers kind of neighborhood of number of views. And so, so the thing was that during the course of this hour, he basically spills his guts into what he's looking for ideas for Burger King. And so I split it up into little chunks, and I put each chunk on a slide where I said, look at what he's saying about this, look at what he's saying about talkability, etc. And so I briefed the teams, and so I joined Zubi in April of 2018. I gave this briefing in February of 2019. And it took several months, and probably around in September, maybe August, they came back with a bevy of ideas. And of those ideas, me and my colleague Pablo, who heads up growth management at the agency, and the creative director Ivan Calle, who I already mentioned, we whittled down the ideas to 3 that we would want to take to Burger King. And so there was one idea that was kind of a simple idea. It was on brand. It made sense. There was a third, there was this idea. And then there was a third idea that was kind of, it was like basically cooking a Whopper with the exhaust from a rocket. And so it was like this crazy far out idea. And so we packaged them into, so going back a little bit, when they presented the creators, and I have to name the creators, is Jorge Jacome, Oliver Emig, Francisco Lozada, and Luis Pipe Nunez. They're the creators responsible for what became the Impossible combo. Initially, they presented it as the Forbidden combo. And they came and they presented it, and they tapped into something that was a true consumer insight, which is, the Whopper is the preferred fast food hamburger in America. It's, in survey after survey, it's like the preferred among the big fast food chains, right? The national ones. And McDonald's fries are legendary, right? Like they're the gold standard. And even Burger King has tried to emulate them in the past. They never can beat McDonald's in the fight for fries. So there was this consumer truth, which was that the main dish, the burger, and the side dish, the preferred one, come from 2 different restaurants. So their idea was, we're going to create this forbidden combo, but they didn't really have a way of figuring out how to execute it. Like in their mind, Burger King was going to buy McDonald's French fries and resell them. And I knew that was never going to fly, right? Like, I mean, it would invite a lawsuit within 30 seconds. And, French fries, and again, my fast food experiences, French fries have a very short shelf life. When they're hot out of the fryer, they're fantastic. A few minutes later, they're not so good. So the idea that we would manhandle at Burger King McDonald's fries and resell them, they would say, look, that's off limits. But I recognized the brilliance of the idea, and I said to them, guys, the way we can make this happen is through a delivery partner. If we bring in a delivery partner that works with both brands, then we can maybe create a hidden menu option where people discover it by mistake or by chance, and they order it. And then what'll happen is the order will come in, the delivery partner will pick up the Whopper first, and then pick up the fries second at McDonald's, and then deliver it. And that way McDonald's can't argue because it's their delivery partner. And we gave them the benefit of the fries got picked up second. And I, even early on, like I was the one that wrote the copy for like what it might look like on the app for the delivery partner. And so I I tapped into my contact at Restaurant Brands International, and he did me the favor and he got me the meeting. So it was three of us from the agency, Ivan Calle, myself, and Pablo Miro. And we're sitting with this highly placed executive at Restaurant Brands International and Fernando Machado, the CMO of Burger King. And he doesn't know us from Adam. We sit down. He knows that he's there because this guy asked him to be there. And we sit down and we get right to the ideas. We present the ideas, and we give like 2 slides about credentials about the agency and what we do. And Fernando Machado sitting there stone faced through the whole presentation. And I'm thinking, we're bombing. This isn't going anywhere. We're bombing. And at the end of the presentation, he smiles and he says, you guys did the typical agency presentation. You presented the easy idea, the one that would be easy to approve. You presented that first.
Right.
And then second, you presented the idea that you really want to sell, the good idea. And then the third one was the shoot for the moon idea, literally in this case, because it was that rocket ship one. And so he's like, but the great thing, and I can't say enough about Fernando Machado as a real marketing thinker. He gave us feedback on all 3 ideas. Okay. He gave us real concrete feedback. He said, listen, I'm not going to buy the number 1 idea because ABC reasons. And I'm not going to buy your 3rd idea because of XYZ reason. He gave like a substantial backup to why he wasn't going to buy it. Now, your 2nd idea, I've heard it before. This is something that's out there in the ether, this idea of combining these 2 things. But what you guys did was you brought in a way to really resolve it and make it happen and it's a way that works. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm thinking, wow, this, obviously I'm proud of the fact that, I got to give all the credit to the creators, but I'm proud of the fact that somehow I was able to put my fingerprint on this, more than just giving the brief right at the beginning of the process and setting up the meeting, getting the meeting set up. So but then he kind of like, he kind of chastised us a little bit. And he said, but here's the thing. You guys mentioned that you're WPP and our agency of record, David, is also WPP. And so we don't take meetings off the street and we don't take ideas from off the street. But since you're WPP, I'm going to ask that you work with David to make this idea come to life. So we did that. We reached out to David. They immediately recognized the brilliance of the idea. The next thing that happened, and it took a couple months, was that the idea was presented to a US delivery partner, a big one. And that delivery partner said, no, we're not going to touch that. Like, we don't want to piss off McDonald's. This is kind of like poking them and trolling them, which is something Burger King has done on its own before, but to bring in a 3rd brand to assist you in doing that is a different order. So the ability to execute it in the United States kind of died right there, but the idea didn't die. And interestingly, during this whole process, Fernando Machado did a long LinkedIn post one day where he was talking about Whopper Detour, which was one of those ideas that won a bunch of awards and Lions and things like that. And he told the real story behind it and how it had almost died several times, and there was a lot of ups and downs, and eventually they were able to execute it, and it became like a huge case for Burger King. And this was a little bit of that. I mean, or a lot of that. This was going on behind the scenes. And so Machado's request of us to work with David ended up being fortuitous because they had relationships with a delivery company in Brazil called Rappi. And Brazil's a huge market, by the way. It's a giant market. It's a giant country. And so they pitched this idea to Rappi, and Rappi said, we're all in. We're going to do this. So in June of last year, so on June 21st of last year, the Impossible Combo, which is what it was now called, was executed for one day as a limited time offer in Brazil. I mean, there was a whole bunch of social media support around it. There was, they changed the signage on some of the restaurants to where it says, Burger King, and then underneath it said home of the Whopper. They changed the part that said home of the Whopper to say Burger King, not Potato King. So, there was all this stuff happened, and, uh, it got executed. And the funny thing about the date is that it was June 21st of last year, and June 21st of this year was the first day of the Cannes Advertising Festival. So it was exactly a year to the day after the idea got executed that the festival began. And so, David has a lot of experience with Burger King and with winning these types of awards. They took it upon themselves to create the case video you just saw. They entered all of the awards, and we were fortunate enough to win a gold pencil at the one show and a silver pencil at the one show. We got a couple of short lists at the DNA and D, which is a very tough festival, arguably tougher than Cannes. We entered in several we were entered in several categories at Cannes. And so the way it works is you get to Cannes, and none of the short lists are announced in advance of getting to Cannes. So you learn while you're there. And so at the last minute, I arranged to take some time off from work, and I was able to swing it to go to Cannes and to go to the festival. And so I'm there, and we end up ultimately finding out that we're on 3 shortlists for Lions at Cannes in different categories. We were shortlisted in the brand activation category, we were shortlisted in the media category, and we were shortlisted in the direct category. And so the way it works is 48 hours after the shortlist for the category is announced, they have the award show where the awards are given. And so roughly 7% of Cannes entries get shortlisted, and roughly 2 to 3% win a trophy, either bronze, silver, or gold. So when you win a trophy at Cannes, you're in the top 2 to 3% of cases. Of course, the higher you go, so if you're a gold, it's a much smaller percentage. A Grand Prix is, just a handful of Grand Prix that are given. And
I'd like to stop if you don't mind, Henry, because I want you to talk a little bit more about the 3 categories. One was brand activation, the other was direct. That was the third. What was the second one?
Media.
Media. Okay, I kind of understand brand activation and media. Is direct like direct marketing, or is that a different definition?
Yes, direct to consumer. So,
I see, direct to consumer. Okay.
So in this case, through the Rappi app, right? It was a direct to consumer exercise, and that's another kind of like lesson from Ken. Each category has a different jury. Where one jury you might not tickle their fancy, another jury you might. And the other thing is, and in talking with people that have served in these juries that I got to meet while I was at Cannes, there's a lot of luck involved. I mean, if your case comes up in the middle of 20 bad cases, they might roll their eyes and not be paying attention. Or if it comes up at the end of the day, I mean, there is some luck involved here. I mean, it's not purely, your case has to get noticed among literally hundreds of cases that could make a short list out of thousands of entries that were entered in the category. So each night of the festival, they give awards for certain categories, and it's all scheduled, and it culminates on the Friday night, and the last award given is the Grand Prix for film. So that tells you a little bit about film. Is still, among the people that work in this industry, we could talk all we want about digital social and all these other, film is still the big catch. It's the
gold standard at Cannes.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that is basically how it works. So our first we learned about our short list on Monday for brand activation, and on Wednesday was the first night. Now, only golds get to walk up on stage, right? And so Wednesday came, and so I was hopeful that maybe I knew we hadn't won a gold because you find out in advance if you win a gold, and but I was hoping that maybe we would take home a silver or a bronze, and I felt that brand activation was our strongest category, and the award show came and went, and we didn't win. I was there, and we didn't win anything, and I was really down. I mean, I was like, I never wanted anything more in my life, to be honest with you, than to win a lion at Cannes. And so Thursday night, or a Thursday, was an interesting day because when I arrived at Cannes, the first thing I did when I arrived at Cannes was promptly lose my passport. And so I spent the week trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do to be able to get back to the States. And I found out that the only thing I could do was drive to Marseille, which is 2.5 hours away, and go to the US consulate there and pay $165 and get a temporary passport, emergency passport issued. So a lot of my mental bandwidth was being spent while I'm at Cannes trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to get back. And so Thursday morning at 6 a.m, I wake up early to get in the car to drive to Marseille to be at the consulate when they open at 9 and throw myself at their mercy because I didn't have an appointment because there were no appointments left to take me as a walk-in. And so I do that. Get my pass. It takes a couple of hours that I'm there. So I'm already, I've been up since 6 a.m. I'm driving back to Cannes. And I'm really, really tired and my eyes are starting to close and it's dangerous. So I pull into a rest area and I take a power nap. And when I wake up from the power nap, there's an email in my inbox that says we've won a silver lion in the direct category. And so I do a video call with one of the creatives I mentioned earlier, Jorge Jacome, and I tell him, hey, have you heard the news? He's like, no, what? I say, we won a silver lion. And he started jumping up and down. And another one of the creators that worked on the idea, Oliver Emig, was there at his apartment with him. They were working on something together. And they started jumping up and down together. And I was crying. And it was an unbelievable moment. So, of the 3 short lists, we won a silver lion. And it was, just all in all, a fantastic experience. I had on Wednesday when I was really down, I was walking to the car. I parked in the garage and I walked by a tattoo parlor. And I said to myself, if we win a lion, no matter whether it's bronze, silver, or gold, I'm going to get a lion tattoo. And so on Friday afternoon at 2:00, I got a lion tattoo. So I'll put up a picture of it here so people can see it. But,
I hope it's on an arm or a leg.
It's on my it's on my leg.
Okay.
down near my ankle. And it's not face, neck, or anything like that. But
okay.
yeah,
I hope it wasn't too painful.
But yeah,
sure you were ready for the pain, given all the joy that you were feeling.
Yeah, it's not my first tattoo, so I was kind of prepared for it, although it's been 35 years.
But down by your ankle is not exactly a painless spot.
Yeah,
a lot of bones down there.
My other one is a fraternity tattoo that I have on the other leg in the same area. So
I have one right here. So it's pretty
meaty.
Yeah, it wasn't painless, but it certainly wasn't painful.
But yeah, so there was that, and overall the whole Cannes experience is, it's an amazing experience. If you're in the, you come up in this business as a young pup, and you hear about this coveted award, and it's the pinnacle of the industry, and it's something that you strive for. And I've been doing this, as you say, every week for 26 years, plugging away. The years pass by, and I've been associated with some good work that, one of the things that I worked on for McDonald's got a short list for film craft at Cannes, which was really nice. And you have some close calls, but to actually go and win, and it's just a phenomenal thing. And to be in that environment, it's very energizing to be in that creative environment, and looking at all the people that do the best work in the world. We're going to do another episode kind of about observations about Ken and some of the winning cases, but it, it really is, I came back with a lot of energy. Your energy gets depleted over time, and you start wondering, like, when is this going to end? Like, are you going to, I'm approaching the twilight of my career. I recognize that. And it's, it couldn't have come at a better moment for me professionally. And, all, credit to the incredible team that we have, those four creators I mentioned, to Ivan, their leader, to Pablo Miro, who managed the relationship with David, and to the folks at David who executed the idea, as if it were their own, and really made it possible and guided the whole award entry process, which is a labyrinth in and of itself. This is a team sport, and you don't get there, on your own. I'm very proud to have made a major contribution, but it's not my award by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, Henry, you deserve all the accolades. You and your team deserve all the accolades you've earned, because, we've talked about this particular project, not in depth to the degree that we have today, but we've mentioned it. You've talked about how how the ideas evolved, not necessarily on our episodes. We've talked about it when we get together before we hit record. So I've been hearing about this for quite a while, and that prompts me to ask you. And we've talked about the whole nature of a creative brief and how ideas that you think might be the great starting point end up going in entirely different directions than you expected. But the smart and the seasoned and the humble creative brief writer recognizes the importance and the need to step back and let the creatives do what they do best. And that you can't complain, because if the idea is superior to what you even were thinking about, you got to run with it. What I think what amazes me, actually, I shouldn't say that because it's not amazing. I've been in the business longer than you have. It's another reminder of how important it is to want to allow ideas to percolate, to nurture those ideas, to keep them alive, because you worked on this for such a long time. And three, to recognize that this idea that you and your team came up with survived for a very long time. And we know we both have horror stories about ideas that start off with these great things and they get whittled down to nothing.
Oh, yeah, a million of them, a million of those war
yes.
stories. But so let me address two of the things that you talked about. One is recognizing an idea, even if it's off brief. We have, from the very earliest of episodes that we've done, I talked about that. It's very important for a brief writer, a strategist, to do that. But in this case, it was even easier because this wasn't something Burger King was expecting. This wasn't an assignment that they gave us. Right. So it was more of a wide open thing for our creatives. But I did recognize right away that this idea was a winner. In more ways than one. So certainly that's true. The other interesting thing was about the time that it took to percolate. It almost percolated too long. And the reason I say that is because on the last night, as I got in line to go to the award show, long line, because it's the last night they're going to give out the Film Grand Prix. Excuse me. I'll mute that out. I'm waiting in the line. I hear some guys talking in Spanish behind me. So of course, I'm representing a Hispanic agency. I'm always, I hear people talking Spanish. I kind of like glom onto their conversation. And it's these guys from an agency in Chile called 1984. And we start talking, and I can't help but mention that I think one of them saw the tattoo, because I had like the saran wrap around it with the, and he's like, hey, nice lion tattoo. And I said, well, yeah, we won our first lion last night. He says, oh, really? For what case? And I said, for the Impossible Combo for Burger King. And the guy looks at me kind of curiously, and he says, are you from David? And I said, no, we're from Zubi. I said, we actually came up with the idea. We pitched it to Fernando Machado. He asked us to work with David. David made the submission, so their name appears first, but we're on there as well. And he kind of like stayed looking at me there, and we started just talking, and then a little really cool guys, and we're talking about different stuff, and I'm on cloud nine. I'm like, and then two of the guys say, I hear them saying something about Barcelona, and I said, and that they needed to get to Barcelona. I said, listen, I'm flying out through Barcelona. I have a rental car. I need to drive to Barcelona tonight after this thing ends. If you guys want to ride with me. And they're like, oh man, that would have been awesome, but we already bought a train tickets for tomorrow. And then the guy who had asked me kind of curiously about who I was with and that idea, he says, listen, I don't believe that this is chance, but I got to tell you something. And I said, what? He's like, that idea that you guys came up with, you executed it last summer. He's like, in Brazil, we didn't hear about it in Chile. And in February of this year, for Valentine's Day, we executed an idea for Heinz, where Heinz ketchup was bringing together the Whopper with McDonald's fries. And we got all this media coverage locally. So they basically had the same idea. They hadn't heard about our idea. Their intent wasn't to rip us off. But when they got all their media coverage, the chief creative officer of David, this guy who I'm talking to says he's a good friend of mine, he called me up to say, hey, watch out, because we executed this exact idea in Brazil 7 months ago. And so if we had delayed, they would have done it first and we wouldn't have been. So they had a great idea. They executed it in a different country. They would have probably won a lion at Cannes, but they couldn't because, frankly, we did it first. We got there first. So that's an amazing, anecdote about, kind of the luck that you need.
Did they submit that idea for an award?
No, because they realized that it would be looked at as something that was copied from another agency. So even though it wasn't, and I have to, acknowledge that, I don't think any good creative worth his salt would knowingly copy, but these things happen in our industry, similar ideas.
It's the knowingly part. No creative wants to be guilty of plagiarism.
But you get to the same idea somehow, right? Like there's different, there's different, they say if you leave monkeys long enough, they'll eventually type the collected works of Shakespeare. People are, I don't think that's true, but I think that given certain variables, like in this industry, you could arrive at similar ideas. I mean, there used to be a website called Coloribus Ad Mirror, and they used to talk about ideas that were very similar to each other, advertising ideas that were very similar to each other.
Yeah, and we've talked about how if you had a new campaign for Tide detergent, just to make up a brand, and the agency had 5 teams that they could devote to that campaign, which maybe they do, I don't know. But that's 10 minds working on one brief. And each team, art director, copywriter, has the capacity to come up with 20, 30, 40, 50 ideas. So multiply that by 5 teams, you've got 2,500 ideas.
Multiply that by how many countries that brand operates in and how many agencies they have, and
I'm just talking about one agency with one group of 5 teams, and you've got, and of course not all those ideas would be presented to the creative director, and only a handful of those ideas are going to make it to the presentation. But if you had a collection of all those ideas, what are the chances that there were going to be some duplicates?
Yep.
I would say it's possible, but it's going to be a pretty small percentage. And then you put the ideas that don't get executed into a drawer and bring them out again the next year. Your next round of 5 creative teams with the same brief would come up with 250 each.
Yeah.
So if 250 ideas. So the point is, there's a possibility that the ideas can be duplicated.
But for example, the idea of marrying the Whopper with the French fries, that's something like Machado said, it's out there in the ether. If you tweet,
Yeah.
if you search for Twitter, people are saying it all the time that this is what they want. This is what they would like to have. This is what they would,
It's
uh,
how you do it. And that was the stumbling block.
in fact, I was, a former Alma colleague of mine was a Ken, and really the only person I knew a Ken that, and when when he said, I used to do that in college. I used to go, there was a McDonald's right across the street from a Burger King. I used to get a Whopper and then I get the McDonald's fries because so it's a true consumer insight. So,
Yeah.
and now food delivery as a kind of a like, a unifying, like the one app that goes to different types of restaurants didn't exist 5 years ago, right? So you throw in that new variable, and it's not impossible that people would come up with the same idea of like, now we could do this with this technology that we couldn't do before, which fulfills this kind of human consumer insight about the fast food category.
Right. Well, Henry, do you have any last minute thoughts about maybe some advice that you would give to others who aspire to this award that you and your team won, and that clearly is a pinnacle of your career? Now, some of your younger creatives maybe will aspire to repeat this, but for you, this is a great feather in your cap. Any advice that you could have to how do you replicate the magic?
So it's a great question. One of the things for us at Zubi, this isn't about winning one silver lion in 2022. We see it as the first, and a new way of thinking about what can be done. Even just coming back from Cannes, one of the big ahas to me was we already have a Grand Prix winning client in house at our agency. I'm fortunate enough, I work on 2 Mars pet care brands, and a different Mars pet care brand won a Grand Prix. And I think we're going to show that case in the next episode that we record. But so we have already clients on board that are willing to buy this kind of stuff. So that's one thing. For any creative out there that is aspiring to do creativity at this level, the things that we've talked about: never give up, understand that things come in their time, be looking for opportunities. I think not every idea that you think is a Cannes Lion winner is a Cannes Lion winner. Even ours didn't make it in a bunch of the categories that it was entered for. So be patient with it. Obviously, awards aren't the be all end all, but it is nice to be recognized by your peers, and it is nice to do work that affects the popular culture and that somehow it is noted out there, noteworthy. And so we work in this business, and for us as an agency also, winning awards allows you to attract better creative talent. If they believe that you're an award-winning shop in which they themselves can improve themselves and also have better chances and cracks at doing this type of creativity, then that's going to help also in the long run. So I would tell agency executives, like, don't poo-poo awards, because while there is abuse of awards and there's an over focus on awards in agencies, awards are important to keep morale up. They're important to attract great talent. People don't want to work at an agency where they don't think they can be recognized. So
Right.
I would say that, and that another big learning, was there were a lot of clients at Cannes. And I talked to people 20 years ago, no clients went to Cannes. And it was something like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that P&G sent like 150 marketing people to Cannes because somebody at P&G said, we need to send our so that they can see like what this is. And it changed the culture. And so now you have marketers that are hungry to want to do that type of work rather than shooting for the low barrier.
Yeah.
I've alluded to many times on the podcast the snarky little post that I made on LinkedIn. That's the average agency person wants to win a lion at Cannes. The average client wants to send his kid to college. And those two goals are not really compatible. But if a client gets the bug, goes to Ken and gets the bug, you can be more aligned and say, we're going to do great work together. And so
Yeah.
there were a ton of clients at Ken, and that wasn't the case, 20 years ago.
That's a really interesting and valid point. Well, Henry, I say this to you every week, but I mean it even more this time. Good stuff, Henry.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you. He's Howard Ibach.
And he's Henry Gomez. And together, we're the Brief Brothers. Until next time.